Hey guys, welcome back to another video where we are going to look at AgilePoint NX connector for Asana. Asana is a web and mobile work management platform designed to help teams organize, track, and manage their work. Let's look at this connector in action. So I'm in my demo environment right now. Now before I do anything, I'm going to create an access token. Now access token can be created at a global level within Manage Center, and such a global token can be reused across multiple applications, or you can decide to create an access token at an app level to restrict its scope to app level. In my case, I'm going to create a global level access token. So I'm going to navigate to Manage, App Builder, Global Access Token. Over here, I can click on Add Token, select Asana, click Next. It will ask me for a token name, so I can just call it demo. Next, it is asking me client ID and client secret ID, something which I'm going to get from Asana. I'm going to also copy the redirect URI from here, which I'll need as one of the information while creating the access token. So I'll navigate back to Asana, go to the home page. I'll click on my user profile. Under user profile, there is a section called My Settings. You'll find a tab over there called Apps, and you can create you can click on Manage Developer Apps, create your new app. So I already have an app. I'm going to create a new app over here. We'll just call it demo. Agree to the terms and conditions for the API usage. I can give some additional information for my app, like short description, long description, my company name. I'm going to just leave it blank. Next, I'm going to navigate to the auth section over here, and I can add my redirect URI, the one which I copied from my Manage Center access token screen. Once that is done, I can copy the client ID, go to Manage Center, paste it, and I can copy the client secret and paste it in the client secret box. Asana uses OAuth2 access token, so I'm going to say get OAuth2 access token. It would ask me to grant permission. I'm going to say allow. And once the access token has been obtained, I can set up a renewal rate. So it can be automatically set to recycle, say, every 30 minutes or every 15 minutes, every hour from a security perspective. So I'm going to say recycle it every 15 minutes, for example. So this way, my access token now has been created. Now I'm going to switch to my app builder screen over here, where I have created a sample process, which I'm going to use to show the configuration of each and every activity. Before that, we are going to look at Asana activity group over here. There are 12 process activities which have been added to the Asana activity group. There are activities for managing your project, your tasks, add comments within tasks, upload attachments. We are going to see configuration of each one of them. So my process starts when I submit a form where I'm going to enter some of the project information. The first activity I'm going to invoke is create a project within Asana. So let's look at the configuration. So I select the access token from drop-down, and then I specify my request mapping. So when I bring up the request mapping dialog, on the left-hand side, what you see is the AgilePoint process and form schema. And on the right-hand side, you see the Asana project schema over here. So what I can do is I can specify my mapping. I've already mapped a few fields. So I'm specifying my due date of the project, any notes which I wanted to put, the name of the project, start date, and which workspace it is going to be created in. Now there are other fields which I could have mapped, like the owner of the project or additional notes, or whether it is the project is marked as public or not. And that's up to you with which fields you want to map. Now once the project has been created, the Asana returns me back a project ID, which I'm storing in a process variable over here called project ID. Similarly, I can go in and update the details of a project. The configuration looks pretty much the same. I'm going to update a couple of parameters like project name and description. So again, in this case, I specified which project's detail I need to update. So I specified the project ID, which I captured in the previous step. And then I passed in the values which I want to update. I can then use the third activity, get project. This will get project details which have been created. As an input, I'm going to specify my project ID, and it gives me back the following parameters, and I can decide which parameters I want to get back in the AgilePoint schema and display it on my form or use it in my process. Next, I'm going to display those results of the get operation on a form and start working on some of the task related activities. So I'm going to enter some task details for the first task which has to be created within this newly created project, and I'm going to invoke create task activity. So in this case, I'm going to specify which workspace is my project in, which project am I creating this particular task in. So it is the same project I created in the first step, so I specified that project ID variable. Give task a name. Again, it can be a variable coming from my form. Specify the assignee. It could be a variable, or I can select it from drop down if it is hard coded. In my case, in my demo, I have hard coded it to my user, but it could be coming from your form. Start date, due date. I can also configure additional properties about this project. For example, priority. So you can also, if your task has certain custom properties, you can set it right over here. Now, because I specified it as a variable, it is expecting me to provide the property name as well as its value. If I would have selected a project from dropdown, which was like if I'm working on a very long duration project and my app was dealing only with this project, I could have just hard coded it. In this case, it would automatically figure out what properties are available on that task and then show it to me over here. I can always delete it if I wanted or add additional properties. Now, once it has been created, I can also put in some description. So I'm going to put an HTML description over here, which is going to be retrieved from my form. And finally, when the task is created, I'm going to store it in the task ID variable. Next, I'm going to update some details of the task. The configuration of update task is pretty much same as create task. I can go ahead and update the task details over here. Then I'm going to retrieve the task details using get task activity to specify my task ID over here, same as what I captured in the create task step, and I can get its details. On the left hand side, it is showing me the task schema coming from Asana, which I'm mapping it to my form or process fields over here. I'll go ahead and display it on the form. Then I'll start performing some actions on this task. So I'm going to add a comment to the task, which I'm going to capture from my form. And then I invoke the add comment to task activity, where it is asking me as an input what is the task ID where the comment has to be added, and whether I'm adding a plain text comment or an HTML comment. In my case, I'm going to add an HTML comment. Next, I'm going to upload an attachment to the task. I can specify my source repository where document is located. In my case, I'm uploading an image called sample image.jpg over here, but you could have kept it as a dynamic file path. And then we specify the Asana configuration, where I'm going to say connect to Asana, which task ID this attachment should be uploaded to. And once it has been uploaded, each attachment gets an ID. So store that attachment ID, and each attachment gets a URL as well. So I'm going to capture that, which I'm going to show in the next step, so that you can see that it got captured properly. And finally, I'm going to mark the task as completed. All it needs as an input is which task ID I need to mark as completed. Finally, I'm going to get some user information as well. In case I wanted to get user profile information, I can connect to a workspace. Now, in my case, my demo is dealing more with workspaces. Asana does have a concept of organizations as well. So in case you were selecting an organization instead of individual workspace, the team drop down would have become enabled as well, and you could have selected the team over here. You can specify either a variable or hard code a name, like I have done in my demo. I have hard coded the user called AgilePoint in this case, but most likely you would have it as a variable. You can specify a username or the user ID, and then it will go ahead and retrieve the user profile information, which I can map to my form elements. Then I start doing some cleanup over here. After displaying the results of the user profile on a form, I'm going to first delete a task. All it is going to look for as an input is the task ID. And finally, I'm going to delete the project as well. It's going to look for workspace name, but that's an optional component, and the project ID which was created. I have already published this application now. So next I'm going to show you the runtime part of the demo. So I'm going to switch over to my work center over here. Open the form. Workspace, I'm going to call it IT. Project name, I'm going to call it AgilePoint NX Software Update 2. Start date would be today. End date would be 31st of March. I'm going to just put some description. This is a demo project. Now, because I enable rich text in my activity, I can do some kind of rich text formatting as well. So I'll mark it as bold, italic, underline in this case, and click submit. Now I'm going to switch over to my task list over here. Since I kicked off a process instance, I could have invoked all my tasks from the task list, but I'm going to work off process viewer so that you guys can track what I'm doing over here and follow along. So you can see that the form got submitted and it created a project in Asana. So if I switch back to Asana over here, you can see there is a project which has been created called AgilePoint NX Software Update 2. The default view is set to list because that's what I specified in one of my input parameters. And if I go to overview, you see the description which I put in bold and italics is showing up over here. Also, the due dates have been set up according to what I have specified. Now, next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to update this project. I'm going to open the task. I'm going to give it a name, updated name. I'll update the due date. I'll bring it back to 24th. And I'll also update the description and click submit. I'm going to switch back to Asana again. You can see that the project name has been updated, the description has been updated, and also the dates have been updated. Now, if we switch back to process viewer, the get project activity has executed in the meantime, and I'm going to show those results on a form. I'm going to open the task form over here. You can see it retrieved the project ID, project name, due dates, description, project owner, owner ID, workspace ID. So it has got all the metadata related to that project. I'm going to go ahead and click submit. Next, we are going to start creating a task in this project. I'm going to open a form. I'm going to give a task name. I'm going to say create design specification. Starts today, ends by end of the week. I'm going to say this is a demo task. I'm going to mark it as bold, italic, underline. So as you can see, the create task activity got executed. So if I navigate back to Asana, click on the project, there's now a new task called create design specification, which is open right now. It is assigned to the person which I specified in the task configuration. Its due date is assigned and also the comments have been added as well. I'm going to go back to process viewer. Now we are going to update this task. I'm going to update the due date. I'm going to say it is now due earlier and maybe give some updated text over here. So if we navigate back to Asana over here and look at the task, you can see that the description got updated in this case and also the due date got updated. Okay, so we are back to process viewer. We'll get task information and display it on the form. So I'm going to open the form over here. You can see additional task information like task ID, task link, assignee name, workspace name, project name, that all has been retrieved back from Asana. So I'm going to go ahead and click submit. Next, we are going to add a new comment to this task. So I have a form over here. I'm going to open it. I'm going to just type something additional comments for task. Let's mark it as bold and click submit. Now there are two operations happening back to back. It will add a comment and also upload an attachment. So if I go back to my Asana environment over here, you can see an additional comment got added and also a file got uploaded to this task. We are back to process viewer. We are going to show the retrieved file information, the file which got uploaded. It got a file ID and the file URL. So we have access to that. Now next, it is again performing two back-to-back operations. It is marking the task as completed and then get some user information. So if I navigate back to Asana, you can see that the task has been marked as completed over here. I'm going to go back to process viewer. It retrieves some of the user information. I'm going to drill down and open the form. And it is showing me some of the user information for the user ID I provided. So I provided AgilePoint as an input. It retrieved the username, the user GUID, workspace ID. This user is available in. It has retrieved some of that information. Now finally, we'll start doing some cleanup. So I call delete task. If I navigate back to Asana, you can see that this task has been deleted. And in the meantime, the delete project activity has been executed as well. And if I switch back to Asana, you will see that that project no longer exists in my list. So as we saw in the demo, a business process designed in AgilePoint can now interact with Asana to manage your project deliveries, tasks, etc. as part of a project management app created within AgilePoint. Thanks a lot for your time.